It is time for the final banner of Book 7, and I'm pretty sure we're getting Gullveig and Kvasir here. I'd be very surprised if we don't, which technically means I think we have like, what, 3 Gullveigs on this banner? I'm very interested to see what they actually end up doing, so let's just jump in and see what we actually got. Okay, up first is Kvasir. We should know both of their weapons already, unless they changed them, but I kind of doubt they did. So she is a Speed Dark Mythic Cav Red Tome, which she was before. Okay, so we actually do have a different preference weapon that she did have in the story mode. So this is kind of interesting. So we have Incipient Kvasir, it has Slang, and at start of combat, if her HP is greater than or equal to 5%, she has plus $5 stats. She inflicts a penalty on the foe's speed and resistance equal to 15% of her speed at the start of combat. So what that means is that her visible speed, 15% of that will act as a debuff on those 2 stats. She'll also get full no follow-up, and she gets special acceleration as well. And then also, if it's her first combat that she initiated or the foe initiated, she'll get 70% damage reduction. This is like the Brave damage reduction, so it'll work against 2 hits if it's a Brave attack. And then lastly, if her HP is greater than or equal to 25% at the start of combat, after combat, she'll inflict like a Panic Smoke, essentially. So this is a bit of an upgraded version of her base weapon. It still has some of the same things, but her base weapon didn't have the speed and res like debuff in it as well. So that's kind of interesting. This is a pretty strong weapon already, right? Like as a defense Dark Mythic, she's going to want to be able to run like on a cav line or something, and this is a pretty good weapon for that. But we also have her preference special, which is a 5 cooldown special, Light is Time. Okay, so what this does is you get 60% of the foe's attack when the special triggers. It has anti-guard built into it, so that means she's going to proc it pretty easily with the special acceleration, right? It's going to be 4 cooldowns, so she can hit, get hit back, and then hit with it, which is nice. But then she has some absolutely insane effects in here. So essentially, if she initiates combat and the special is triggered, she'll get one of 2 effects. If she survived the combat, and this is the first time this has happened, she'll get an effect where she can essentially dance an ally with the highest HP among allies within 2 spaces who have already acted. So it's this kind of like Brave Marianne's Requiem dance, right? But then it only inflicts gravity if the ally's range is equal to 2. So if it's a melee, it actually doesn't put gravity on them, which is a nice little upgrade over Marianne. But then also, if it activates again in that same turn, she gets a completely different effect called Timescape. And what Timescape does essentially is it allows allies within 4 spaces of Kvasir to teleport adjacent to her. This is ridiculously powerful, right? This is essentially like Super Requiem Dance from Marianne. Marianne's special doesn't do damage at all, and it also doesn't have anti-guard built into it either. It also doesn't have a way to get around its gravity effect, and it definitely doesn't have a second condition built into it. So this is essentially like just a completely power crept version of Requiem Dance. The big difference obviously has to be the actual special cooldown, where Requiem Dance is only a 3 cooldown special, while Light is Time is a 5 cooldown special. But even so, even with the 2 cooldown special difference, I think this is just ridiculously more powerful, right? We also have the introduction of Lull Speed Res 4, which really isn't anything new. We've already seen like Lull Speed Defense 4, so it's just an upgraded version of that, which is nice because it is one of the better lulls to have for like an offensive unit. But we also have a new C skill, Incite Attack Speed. What this essentially does is that at start of turn, if Kvasir has allies that are adjacent to her that are less than or equal to 2, so pretty easy, right? Like as long as she's not surrounded, she'll get a visible attack and speed +6 and a new buff called Incited for 1 turn. And then if the number of allies adjacent to her is less than or equal to 1, she'll get attack and speed +3 during combat. So essentially she'll like want to be alone or like mostly alone to get this effect. But then inside this new buff, what this does is if she initiates combat, she gets a bonus to all of her stats equal to the number of spaces from start position to end position, a max of 3. So this is essentially like a mini clash effect built into his C skill, which is really strong, especially because it gives it to all stats and not just 2. So, oh man, this is really powerful. And it's gonna be really good on like a lot of offensive like units that want to go in and just blast things and have high movements, like cav units essentially. Okay, so when it comes to roles, what does Kvasir really want to do? Her main role is going to be a nuke. That's what she's going to be mostly focusing on, but she does offer some really nice support as well, right? The extra movement, the panic smoke, and then also the Timescape effect as well. And so when it comes to all that combined, what do you really see with Kvasir? What is her main thing she wants to do? She is like an ultimate cav line unit, essentially. She is perfect for cav lines in dark defense. That's what you're going to want her on. You're going to put her with like Emblem probably so that the enemy can't save, and then she's going to be able to go in, do a ton of damage, probably survive because she has some really high damage reduction, and then she'll either grant another action to one of the other cavs that have already moved, or maybe even like a unit who did like a rally trap, or a unit who like has like pathfinder, right? Like let's say you have like duo dagger on your team and she does a rally first to extend the range, well then Dual Dagger can get another action after the special procs. And if for some reason it activates again, then you can just give Timescape, which means that everybody can just warp forward and like apply pressure across that whole bottom line of the cav line essentially. This unit is just built to be a cav line unit essentially, and she's really good at it. Like she's really fast. She has, you know, NFU, she has lots of ways to deal damage and survive. She's going to have a ton of stats, and she even offers some really powerful support. So, like, that is her main role. Ether Raid's defense is, like, going to be her best role by far. I do think she could be used in summoner duels as well, because unlike Mary Ann, who, like, doesn't really get the effect of Requiem Dance, you kind of, like, really want to go for, like, Ruptured Sky for a more consistent damage output. You kind of just get it for free on Kvasir, which is really powerful. Now, the thing, of course, is that ranged calves aren't the most powerful in SD at the moment, unless they're on specific maps or specific team compositions. But I think Kvasir could definitely fit into those compositions with, like, Wind Dagger or, like, with, like, the Pathfinder, like, lines, right? So I think Kvasir's looking really strong at the moment, and I would not be surprised if she is very annoying to deal with in Ether Raid's defense. But let's move on to our next unit, who I'm guessing is Gullveig. There's Gullveig, not a surprise at all. Now let's see what she actually does with her upgraded weapon, if it is upgraded, or if she has what preference skill. Oh, wait, what? She's a defense mythic? That's not good. I was honestly not expecting Gullveig to be an Anima mythic by any means. I thought she was going to be like an offensive mythic like Light or Astra, probably Light. This is a bit scary. Oh man, let's see what she does. So we do have an upgraded preference weapon for Gullveig as well. This is not the same weapon she had in the story mode. This has Slaying, and then if she initiates combat, or if the foe's HP is greater than equal to 75% at the start of combat, she'll get +5 to all stats. She gets a bonus to her attack and speed equal to 15% of her speed at the start of combat, so that visible speed she has. She gets full no follow-up, and then if she initiated combat, she gets 70% damage reduction against the foe's first attack, and she heals 7 HP after combat. And then lastly, of course, if she initiated combat, she'll also get that Galeforcer effect, which is so ridiculously powerful, but it does inflict that gravity effect on her as well. So this is actually pretty similar to her base weapon that we see in the story mode, which is some slight upgrades, right? Getting that nice bonus to attack and speed based off her speed and extra healing as well. Now, this is already really scary, and it does mean that like she could be good as well in a cav line, but now on Anima season, as she's going to be able to go in, be able to survive a lot of things, and then grant herself another action, which means that she could go in, hit something really hard, survive, and then possibly move over a space and nuke something that she really didn't want her to hit. So I think this unit's already pretty scary just with the preference weapon. But let's check out Time is Light, her preference special. Okay, so Time of Light is just broken. What this does is you get 45% of your speed when the special triggers. You get anti-guard as well, but then if she initiates combat and she survives, then she gets another Gale Force, essentially, which does inflict gravity as well. And this will take priority over the one in her weapon, so that will proc second. So essentially, Gullveig can have 3 attacks. Yeah, that's kind of broken and stupid. And I honestly think the only thing holding this back is that she is a defense mythic. So like, what you essentially want to do is make sure that she dies, and so that way she never gets to act on those 3 actions. But if this was like a light mythic, oh my god, this would be the best Galeforcer in the game. She would be completely and utterly ridiculous. The thing is though, of course you can use this in Chaos Season and do exactly that. We also of course have Flared Sparrow, so another source of Flared Sparrow in the game. We have a new B skill, Occultist Strikes. And what this does is if she initiates combat, she deals 7 damage to foe as combat begins, so this is essentially like Flared Sparrow as well. She also inflicts speed and resistance -4 on the foe in combat, and then she also gets 20% damage of the foe's resistance as true damage. This is a very powerful B skill, especially for things like Cavs, who don't have like always the best B skills to run, right? Especially like ranged Cavs. So being able to get true damage not only before combat, but getting some stats and then true damage as well based off the foe's resistance is really good, even if it doesn't work with AoEs. And then lastly, she gets Defense Res Smoke 3, which does mean that she has a way to activate Pathfinder, once again making her even more toxic and difficult to deal with, as not only can she go in, kill something, survive, and then being able to have another 2 actions, she can possibly provide Pathfinder to her team, making it so that it's even more deadly and more difficult to tank. Okay, when it comes to roles, what is Gullveig doing? She's doing the same thing as Kvasir pretty much. She is a nuke, that's her main thing she's doing. She is offering some support in the form of like Pathfinder with Defense Res Smoke, or just being able to like apply a lot of pressure, but her main thing she's doing is nuking. That is what she's totally built for, And when it comes to like what game modes you're really going to be seeing her in, Aether defense obviously is going to be the best role for her, as she's just going to be insane there. But she could definitely be used in summer duels as well. Now the thing of course is that you really do have to use her with those cav teams like I was mentioning earlier with Kvasir. But on those cav teams, she's going to be really strong. And the reason for that is like the same reason why Brave Gullveig can be good in SD, is that action economy. Being able to get free actions on your units without having to actually do anything is really good, right? It allows you to go in with Gullveig, kill something, and then you're still threatening their team. So now they're in the position where they have to kill Gullveig, and if they don't, they're in trouble next turn. And it really does apply a lot of pressure. Now the thing is, of course, is that Gullveig is a cav, so you're going to have to play around that. But even so, I think she's going to be really good in SD. The only other thing I'm really concerned about is, of course, like just with Brave Gullveig, she doesn't have DR piercing, which is something to consider, but she does have a lot of true damage, right? With Flare and Sparrow and Occultist Strike, she's already doing 14 damage before combat, and then she also gets 20% true damage as well. So I don't think she'll have the most difficult time killing things, but it could be something that I have to like consider. Either way, I think she's gonna be a really powerful unit and a really annoying unit to deal with. Now, when it comes to Aether defense, I do think there is one thing you have to consider, and that is like killing Gullveig, right? Because she has damage reduction built into her weapon, it is pierceable. So if you have a really good like Omni tank or even like save unit who can secure kills, it's gonna go really far and really help you out. Now, some of these units who can do this is like Legendary Lear is probably the best, being able to have like that effect to just pierce through DR and also have like NCD, so you don't have to worry about like other annoying effects. It's gonna mean that you can like secure this kill on Gullveig, and then even if she does a lot of damage, she'll be dead, so she won't get all these additional actions where she gets the stacking true damage from Flared Sparrow and Occultist Strike. So I do think there is some ways to deal with her, but even so, she's gonna be really, really powerful. The biggest thing I have to say though is like, once again, she is not an offense mythic. If she was an offense mythic, she'd probably be the best offense mythic to ever exist. Like, she would just be completely and utterly ridiculously broken. She would be like the best Galeforcer in the game, and like it would just be ridiculous. Like, you wouldn't be able to deal with her like ever. So it's probably good that she isn't on offense, but I think like DTM will probably be a bit sad. Maybe even me a little bit too. I don't know. She sounds fun to play with on offense. Either way, let's just move on and check out the rest of the banner. Okay, let's talk about this banner, and when it comes to the best color on this banner, I think it has to be green. Even though it doesn't have any of the new units, green is just ridiculously stacked, right? You have Legendary Robin, who's still one of the best supports in the entire game. You have Aether, who is just skyrocketed in value. She was already really good, but the introduction of Ruse 4 made her even better because she's by far the best user of that, meaning she can easily shut down meta things like Capture Your Balls and support your Omni Tank or your Save Ball in Anima season, which is really, really good. And then you have Sather, who also is really underrated. I think she's a really powerful Astro Mythic as well. She just takes some like really understanding of how to use her to like the optimal level. So I think green is actually just ridiculous value. You're getting merges on Mythics and Legendaries, which is where the merge value actually is. When it comes to second place, I think red and colorless can kind of share depending on what you need. Red has some really good value as well. You get Legendary Yuri, who's a fantastic nuke and mobility support alongside the new Kvasir. And then you even get Fallen Female Byleth, who does have some like really good fodder, and she's also a really good Vantage Omni Tank as well. Colorless, if you need these units, then they're really good, but if you don't, then it's not as much of a big deal, right? Mortis is like still one of the best Anima Mythics because he just can be a save, which is really, really valuable because you typically want saves on your team if you're running that kind of defense. And then obviously you have Gullveig, who is the new Anima Mythic, who is just bonkers, so there's a lot of value there. The thing is that you don't really need merges on defense Mythics, so the value of like pulling a ton of copies there isn't the best. And then lastly, you have Guinevere, who is a legendary, so you are getting some value there. But the thing is, honestly, Guinevere is just not the best legendary. She really doesn't perform well in like any like role, like at the highest level, and she's not really used in like any game mode at the moment. She does have really good fodder though, and mostly Disrupt 4. So if you end up picking up a copy of her, at least you have that. And then in last place, I'm going to have Blue. Blue is just not like the most insane. It's not bad by any means. Like, you have Nerthus and Aether, who do have really good fodder and are very good units themselves. Aether in particular can like do some skill duplication, and she has B-Sense 4, which is a really cool skill as well, and the Arcane Weapon, right? So there is some definite value in Blue. The real weak link here is Sheeta. Sheeta is just not a good legendary. She was good for like 6 months, and then she just completely fell off. She can't really secure kills, and as a Vantage like unit, that's like the main thing you need to do. So I think like Blue is by far the weakest, but all the other colors are pretty solid depending on what you need. So overall, I think this banner is actually pretty good. Now let's move on to the Mythic tier list. Okay, so when it comes to the Dark Mythic tier list, I think I'm going to put Kvasir like right in front of Emblem or right next to Emblem. I think just depending on what kind of team you're running, she could be higher, but like that's pretty much where I'm going to put her at. The thing is with Medius is that Medius is just so ridiculously good just because of On Guard, right? The ability to just turn off Bolt Tower is so extremely powerful, and so I still think he is better than Kvasir overall, but if you're going to be switching to a Cav line, you don't need Medius anymore. That's just the truth of it, right? Cav lines are really offensive, and they're going to engage on turn 2 pretty much no matter what, which means that you really don't have to worry about Bolt Tower. So in that situation, Kvasir and Emblem like actually go up in value quite a bit, and if the meta ends up turning more offensive to those Cav lines, to those flyer lines, then I do think that they could definitely upgrade into the S+ rank. Okay, now when it comes to the Anima Mythic tier list, this is a bit more interesting because I think Gullveig could be like right above Immortus and like right behind Mirabilis. She might go a little bit higher, but I just don't see her being better than Freyr overall. Freyr is just like completely toxic. He just like completely shuts down so many different strategies, so many types of debuffs. He's just difficult to deal with. So like I think Freyr is still better, especially if you're running those less offensive defense archetypes, right? But if you are going to be switching to those Cav lines, once again, just like with Dark Season, then the value of Gullveig definitely goes up a lot more because she's pretty much built for a Cav line, right? Like that's where she's going to perform the best in a lot of situations, though she can perform on other defenses as well. The only reason why I don't really have her as like the best is because she can get shut down. Especially if you kill Gullveig in that first combat, then a lot of her value kind of like gets destroyed. She'll still hit you really hard and do a ton of damage, but the thing is she won't get those triple actions where she really just pops off and goes insane. And so for me right now, I'm going to put Gullveig behind Mirabilis, but it is possible she can go higher if the meta starts switching around and we start to see some really offensive defense maps. Okay, let's move on to the final section of the video, should you pull? And this is like a really hard one to say because there are some great pros here, right? The green share is like ridiculously insane. Like this is probably one of the best green shares we've had in a very long time. The red share is very solid, and so is the colorless share. Both of those are very, very good shares if you need those units. If you don't, they're not as valuable because you really don't need merges on all those units. The other thing is there's really good fodder here. Some of the new fodder introduced on this like banner is like just stupidly good as well. And even some of the older fodder, like a lot of these units just have really good fodder, so even if you end up pulling them and you don't really want to merge them, you're still getting something out of pulling them at least, right? Now the big cons are the blue share is kind of weak, and Book 8 is coming out in about a week, which means that no matter what, unless you're like a whale or like you're like a Fay Pass subscriber, you should probably wait at least until that Book 8 reveal so we can see who's on that banner, because it should be the new Mythic or whatever new unit we're getting. And also they might add new game modes, which means the value of units can definitely change just in the matter of a week. The other thing you have to consider, of course, is the Legendary Mythic banner at the end of December, which we already know is insane. Like every single December, we get the rerun of Choose Your Legends. So by just looking at the calendar, we know we're going to have some really good value there with the current lineup we see with Choose Your Legends. And then the new Mythic we'll be getting in the beginning of December, and then a new Legendary Mythic at the end of December as well. So December is like really, really, really stacked. So you're probably going to want to have some orbs for there as well. And then if you're a big Christmas person, then obviously the Christmas banner can be insane. We've had some really good Christmas banners in the past, so it's possible this year is stacked as well. So of course, because this banner lasts so long, at least wait until Book 8. That's my biggest recommendation. Unless you're a whale, then just go ham and do your sparking. But now I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of this banner? How do you feel about Kvasir and Gullveig? Do you think either of them are just going to completely dominate the Aether Raids meta, or like maybe even Summoner Duels? I'd love to hear what you're thinking, so make sure to drop a comment down below. And as always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later.